Alright, so I'll walk through how I would set this rhino scene up for rendering. If you've done this before, if you're really familiar with Keyshot, maybe this is a lot of repeat, so keep working on your project. If not, definitely listen in and take a look. So anyway, so you should have some headphones like so, and what I like to do before I go into Keyshot is I'll save this file again, and typically I put on, like, I've been saving this as Beats 008, so I'm going to do a file save as, and I'm going to just say Beats for rendering, save. Actually, I'm going to delete any extra files or any extra geometry, I should say, in the file. Make it as light as possible before I take it into Keyshot. So I'm letting it save here. I'll go through and I'll delete that stuff. I'll delete these now. Delete my curves. I'll even take the headphones themselves. I'm going to go ahead and move them. Draw a little line here from the bottom of this to the bottom over here. Grab the headphones. I'm going to type in move. Move this to the 0 point. So I just typed in move, 0, enter. And I'll move it right to the middle of my grid, like so. Go ahead and delete that line down here that I had made. And I also have my layers set up for all my parts. So each part that I click on here, I have this grouped together. Let me ungroup. There we go. So this piece, for example, I'll go through my layers and I'll turn them off one by one. So I got the headband, I'll turn off. Bottom of the headband, the adjuster, headband jewel, main top, main bottom, jewel 2. Button, accent piece, stitching, leather A, leather B, foam, and then the ear shell itself. And I make sure that each layer is separate like that, and I'll go back and just turn them on. So step 1, make sure my layers are right. I'll go ahead and close my layer dialog here, and then also I'm going to make sure that I have this shaded nicely. So I'm going to go into my settings. This would be under File Settings on Mac. Over here I just hit this little gear and it pops up here. I'll go under Mesh. And right now it's set to jagged and faster, so when I'm working right now, I come over here and I can look at my model and shade it pretty quickly and move it around easily. If I go smoother and slower, it will create a finer mesh for viewing, make the model look better on the computer, but it will be taking up more the PC computing power or Mac. I'm going to hit OK. I do want it to make a better mesh at this point before I take it into Keyshot. So right now it's thinking, it's remeshing all these parts to make them a little bit smoother, a little bit more accurate. Still thinking, and looks like it's remeshed. I go ahead and shade it, so it's a little bit finer mesh. So if I zoom in, I can see a little bit of jaggedness here, but I'm not going to do any renderings that close anyway. I mean, I'm going to be probably maybe this close on some of my renderings, and it looks pretty smooth. So I'll go ahead and live with that. Once you reshade it again with the finer mesh, go back and save it one more time so it saves that mesh data in the file.
Where did you go to remesh it?
Under it should be under File Properties on the Mac. It's under Mesh. If I go on the PC, it's under Document Properties, Mesh. And then over here, smoother and slower. Okay, then you shade it once. Oops. So it has to rebuild the mesh to make the shade, and then go ahead and save it. So basically, I've stripped down this file. I've gotten rid of all the other layers that I don't need, all the other data, curves, and all that stuff, and just stripped it down to the only file I need just for rendering, and that's it. So now that it's saved, I can close it. But if you have a PC and you can actually use the Keyshot plugin for Rhino on a PC, and I can just hit Keyshot here and hit render, and it'll basically open it up in Keyshot. If you don't have the plugin, just open up Keyshot. And do a file open, find your Rhino file, and go ahead and open it up. And then you get something like this. So just, I'm not going to go into too much detail on applying materials to this. I'll just throw on something quick here. I can drop this material right on my piece over here. Miscellaneous. Let's have some fun with this. So I'm going to take this, double click on my bottom piece here. It opens up the material. I'm actually going to, let's see here. Oh, that's right, textures. Go under textures, hit leather. And actually, that applied it to everything. So I kind of goofed up right out of the gate. So I'm going to hit undo, and get it back to this state here. In my scene, I'm going to make sure when I open up my scene, all my layers that I had in Rhino will be right here on the right, over in the scene. And remember how you get this pop-up box here, dialog boxes, you hit your space bar, and they'll bring it up. And remember, M will bring up your materials on the left. I'm just tapping that on and off. So let me just get some, let's make this thing look decent. I'm going to double click on the headband, go under textures over here, under texture, it says, or diffuse, either one. Do a leather, like so. And go ahead and make this a black and a gray. So kind of hard to see exactly what's going on here. Going to go into my environments over here on the left. I'm going to try to drop in a little bit brighter environment. It's hard to read what's happening with the bottom of this headband. Double click this again, go into my textures, I got the diffuse. Maybe I'll just lighten these up for now. Like that. that, and I'm lightening it up so I can adjust the scale of this. Bump this up to 100. There we go. It was such a fine scale. I'm all the way up at 1,000 actually. That now I can finally start to see that, you know, it's starting to look a little bit more like leather. I'm going to drop it down to like 750. Like that. And then I want to have a little bump to this, so I'm going to hold my Alt key down and drag it over to my bump. And it'll give it a little bit more thickness there. And I might go in here and I'm going to go to opacity, and I'm going to make it look like this is perforated. So I'm under the opacity map. I'm going to hit down here under textures, and I'm going to go to mesh circular. And with that, okay, I'm going to bring this scale way up. There we go. I'm starting to see it. And remember, I don't think I'm liking that, because you can actually see through it all the way. I'm going to back up. I'm going to get rid of the bump being the diffuse and change that to mesh circular. Turn off the opacity. Diffuse, I'm going to scale 750. I'm going to take this up to around there too. Increase the bump. Height. There we go. Now I'm starting to see the size of the bumps here. I'm going to change it from a box map to UV coordinates, so it's uniform on that, like so. And then I'm going to scale it down. So I get some texture in here. You start to see these little bump details. Still not liking it. I'm getting this kind of bumpy, perforated look with this mix match type leather. I don't know if I go over to my materials if there's a perforated leather or not in the default. Let me see. Paint, Multec, cloth, leather, leather. Oh, there's a perf here. Let me drop it in here and see what it looks like. Drop that in there. Under textures, there's the bump. It does have a little opacity to it. It changes to UV coordinates. There we go. I'll take this and scale it down. That's what I'm looking for. Something like that. I'm going to go ahead and turn the opacity off because I really don't want to be able to see through the leather, although that offers a nice depth to it, which is nice. I'll try that for a little bit. Anyway, so that's an example of putting some perforated leather on that piece there. Like I said, but when you do that, let this res up for a second, you can see white right through it, these little dots. In reality, you would not be able to see through this, so I'm going to go ahead and just turn opacity off. You still get the bump effect, it still looks somewhat perforated, so I'll live with that. Alright, now that I have that material, I can actually shift left click that and then shift right click on these other leather pieces. Shift right click there. Right there and right there. If I wanted to, this piece, I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to say unlink material. And I'm going to right click on this piece over here and unlink material. So when I left click on this guy now, double left click, it pulls it up over here. Go into textures, I'm going to turn off the bump. So I just get the smooth leather here. And it doesn't affect everything else. And I'm going to come over here and turn this one off too. Texture, bump, turn that off so it's a smooth leather. Matter of fact, maybe I'll alt drag that over into the bump. So you get that a little bit of bump there. Now I'll shift left click, shift right click over to here. Now these are linked together nicely. So I got the perforated leather in here, but I've got just a smooth on the outside. It's mixing it up a little bit. I go over to my paints on the left. Material. Paint, metallic, basic. I'll just do a blue here and here. Let's do silver. That, and then I'm going to add a little bit of chrome in here. So I'm going to go to, and under my materials, there's metal. I'll grab the chrome, go basic, drop some chrome right here. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'll drop some chrome here on these pieces. I'm going to modify this a little bit. It's been a while since I've done this, but I'll double click on this. I'm going to go to textures. I'll load a bump map. Maybe brushed. Let's see. Not brushed radial. Let's see here. Try brush that way. So now I've got this brush effect happening here. If I could scale it up, you can see it a little more. It's going this direction. I really want to go up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and change the angle on this and type in 90. Now I've got it going this way. It's a little too shiny for my taste, so I'll go back to properties and I'll bump up the roughness. Maybe like 0.05. Res up here. So now it's more like a brushed aluminum versus a chrome, but I started with just a base chrome material, went into textures, added this bump map. I I like the size of the brushing. It's not too big. Fairly subtle. Looks good to me. And I'll even go back. I don't like perfect chrome. Like this is just perfect shiny chrome. So I'll double click that and I'll add just a touch of imperfection to it. So it's not just this computer perfect chrome. And as soon as it reses up, it actually look pretty darn close to chrome. All right. I'm going to just left shift, right click to here, and just keep the same material in that piece, maybe a little bit darker. So since I did a shift, left click, shift, right click to this piece, if I wanted to, I could left click this a couple times, pull up that material. I could right click on this object, say unlink it, so I can now adjust anything on this material and not affect that material. And I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. So it's the same family, but it's just going to be a little bit darker. Let's see here. Metal color, so it's actually going to adjust it a lot. And I'll use that same dark color in here. And I'll use this lighter here. Maybe. I have to come back over here. I'm going to shift left click this material, shift right click this object, pass that material over there, shift left click, shift right click to here, and same thing, shift left click on that object, shift right click over here. And I've got this inside piece here, which I'll go ahead and make the dark color too. So I'm just going to shift left click here, shift right click over here, shift right click over there. And I actually have another little piece of another object right here. I'm just going to left click, shift left click there, pass it on to there. Same with that. Now I did this in the extended. It looks a little elongated, almost like I need to pull these things out and put a head in there. But anyway, that's why they look a little weird, just because I had them extended, but not on something yet. So anyway, we'll start with that. Now let's say I'm happy with this. I'm like, all right, I'm going to set my. Let's go ahead and set this up. So I'm going to go into image first of all, up in the top. And I'm going to go into resolution presets, landscape. So image, resolution presets, landscape. And remember, we're doing a 24-inch by 18-inch print at the end of the day, which I think is a 4:3, right? 24 by 18 is a 4:3 ratio. 8 times 3 is, yeah, 8 times 4, yep, okay. So I'm going to click that, and I think I'm already in that ratio. So what you see here on my screen is basically what your board would look like. So now, you know, how you zoom in on your headphones for your rendering, how much space you take up, how close you can zoom in and not be cropped off is going to be very accurate to how you'll print this off and put them on your board at the end of the day. So under image, I got lock aspect ratio. Actually, let me unlock that one. Yeah. Yeah, the poster size is 24 inches wide by 18 inches tall. Landscape. Yep. Which is 4:3 ratio in this guy. And then so resolution preset, I'm not so worried about that at this point. I know it has to be that 4:3 ratio, which is 800 by 600 too. So I could just set up my resolution 800 by 600, fine. Just make sure that's all locked. I can lock my resolution. So then I'm going to go over to the right, and I'm going to go into environment. And I know I'm going to, let's say I know I'm going to print this off with just some basic shadows hovering in a white space. So I'm going to go ahead and make my environment white. So I'm going to go to environment tab, come down to background, click color, click on the color and make sure it's white. Hit OK. So I've got this. Now there's something we haven't covered too much, and it's the HDRI editor. So let's say I'm setting this up for a shot. I'm getting the angle I want. Say I'm coming in like this. I'm going to go into my camera setting, and I'm going to, first of all, set this to, I've got 35mm focal length here. I'm just going to look at some others. There's 50, 60. I'll even go 28, push it a little bit more. I'm going to stick with a 55mm lens for this right now. And then I'm also going to twist the camera to give this thing a little bit of interest. I don't mind, like if I'm doing a splash shot, if I have full bleed with the image going off the poster, you know, if I have, let's say one of your shots looks like this, and you leave a little room for your name and the or the logo of the brand that you picked or what have you over on the left. You know, it's all about how you put it together. Well, let's say I like this shot here, so I twisted my camera a little bit. I've got the environment to white. It looks really orange on the projector, but it's silver, and this is actually silver on my screen on the computer. Anyway, so let's say this is my shot. I'm like, all right, I'm envisioning this is going to be one of my splash shots. I'm going to put a logo of the brand right here. I'm going to put my name up here, and I'm going to use this. So again, your image, you should have that aspect ratio of 4:3. I'll just click that, double check. I'm going to go under lighting. And right now, basic is looking really good to me. I don't mind that at all. I could go product. It might give me a little bit better shadow qualities and light bouncing and all that stuff. You know, I wouldn't waste your time going like full simulation on this. You're not going to gain that much, especially you're not going to see that type of detail when you print these off anyway. So anyway, save yourself some time. Definitely do basic or product mode would be just fine for this. I got my shot. Global illumination, if you remember, that's when you have light bouncing off of other objects onto, you just get light bouncing around the scene. It adds another layer of realism, but also adds time to your render time. I'm just going to go ahead and turn that off because I'm not seeing a big change in the quality of my rendering when I have it on or off. So basically, when I was in product mode for my rendering and I turn global illumination off, it switches to custom here, which is fine with me. So now I'll come down in the lower right hand corner here. It says render. I'm going to select render. And I have output, options, and queue. So let's look at output first. So this is where you're going to name it. So I'll call this Beat Splash folder. I'm just going to render this right to my desktop. So select your folder now. Instead of trying to search and see where it defaulted to later. Actually, I'm going to there, and then format. I'm going to go ahead and render this right to Photoshop. Or not. There's not a lot of whole lot of post operation I'm going to do on this. If anything, I'm going to bring it into Illustrator. But let's do kind of a shortened version of the demo that we saw the other day with all the post operations. So I'll go ahead and select a PSD as my output file. Resolution. Now this is where actually Keyshot does a great job of setting this up for you. Your print size, I'm going to go ahead and just type in 24 inch. And it automatically goes to 18 inch because we're locked into that 4:3 aspect ratio. And it says at 300 dpi, so that's going to be awesome for printing. And that automatically makes your resolution 7200 by 5400. So you know that's how large you're going to be rendering this thing. You're going to render it this big, so when you shrink it down to this size, it looks good when you print it, if that makes sense. Render it big, shrink it down small, print it, and it's going to look like photo quality. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do that. Remember the clown pass? I'll go ahead and do a clown pass. Add to PSD. I don't know. I'll go ahead and do that one too. All render passes. I don't want all render passes. Clown pass, add to PSD. All render layers. Okay. Geometric normal pass. No, remember he covered normal pass before and it was for something a little bit different. Anyway, we'll do that. So we got 7200 by 5400, 24 by 18 inch, 300 dpi. Looks good. I'm going to go to my options. I'm going to go ahead and I'll let this thing render for 10 minutes, and while it's doing that, I'll go get some coffee. So I'm going to go ahead and instead of quality under max samples, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do advanced controls. I'll just do max time. I'm going to type in 10 minutes and 30 seconds. It really depends on your computer. You know, I would say try one for 10 minutes first or 5 minutes and see what the quality looks like. You could also
I feel like I should be able to tell myself what is the
if it's good enough.
kind of product that I'm rendering like this, that I'm not going to be able to tell.
Well, you know what? So let's do this. Let's do this. Let me do a 1 minute rendering, and I'll do a 10-minute rendering, and we'll compare the two. You know, so I'll get the 10 minutes started, and then we'll look at that compared to a 1 minute. We'll compare apples to apples, and you'll be able to see what I'm looking for in a good rendering anyway. And sometimes, you know, you may just go max samples. If we have time, I'll try this one too. It defaults at 64, so maybe after those two renderings, I'll do a third at 64. We'll time how long it takes and see how that looks compared to the other ones too. So anyway, I got the output. I got my folder selected, name of the file, name of the PSD file, the size, the different passes I want. And then under options, I'm just selecting max time, use real-time CPU settings, all that good stuff. I hit render. And it's 437, so 447, 448-ish. Should be done. All right, and I am gonna go get a cup of coffee. You guys get it though? I mean, getting into the render stage.
Yeah. Before you go, is there a way to link the Rhino file with the Keyshot file, so if you change something in the Rhino file,
Yeah, you have Keyshot. You know what? I know if you can in Windows, if you use the plugin, the Keyshot plugin in Rhino, I'm not sure if it works on Mac or not, but yes, you can. But you have to have. You don't see down here when I go back to my Rhino file, you'll see I have a little tab that's called Keyshot right up in my other tabs, and that's the plugin. Just you know what?
The way to do it on that. So,
re-import it, merge to your current scene. You can update a part in Rhino, save that exact same Rhino file again, or export that part. Bring it into Keyshot, and it'll say, do you want to open this part, or do you want to merge it with the current scene? Basically says, do you want to wipe out the current scene and just bring in this part, or do you want to blend it, or merge it? You say merge, and it'll bring in the new part.
Does it make it a part of that one, or if you move your one?
It should have the same coordinates, but we've already moved it in Keyshot, it's going to be flow down space.
Right. Okay. Cool.
But that plugin is pretty nice because you can move stuff in Rhino to say update, and then no matter what you did in Keyshot, it'll change it there.
What I really like is background lamps.
Very popular. Very safe bet.
Yeah. On this one, I actually have 4 of them. One that I have been working with.
Can you use the back? It'd be cool if you could use the background. What's the background like? Those inspirational images that we have that gun or weapon?
Yeah.
What was the background there?
Well, actually, I have to play with something else. And I have to say that we could do for that.
Like that type of stuff.
The honeycomb. Oh wow, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So when I
Just make a graphic and
yeah.
I would throw it on you could make your own ramp in Rhino.
That's what I was thinking.
Throw a graphic
throw it
on
on
it
it.
and that'll be your background. Custom.
Okay, yeah, I can start it.
Alright, be right back.
Briefly, triathlon race. Not bad.
think it is still going. Looks like it may be done. Look at that. There we go. So when your rendering is done, you see a little check mark in the corner. Hard to see on the projector, but you click that. I go ahead and finalize that rendering. And while I am here, I'll go ahead and open it up. I'll go back, go to my desktop. It should be there. There it is. There's the clown pass. There's the all, or just a straight up RGB pass. Now you notice when I zoom in, look how close I can get and still have a really nice rendering here. It's a little flaky because that's metallic paint. It's supposed to come off that way. But I know, if this is a poster and I just print it off, you're going to look at the poster this close and you're going to see that type of definition, that detail, which would be nice. For example, the definition in the leather here. Get in there really close. So let me go ahead and I'm going to do the same rendering. Go into render, options, maximum time. I'm just going to do 1 minute and 30 seconds. Output, it's 112. I think the other one was 1111. So I'll go ahead, that looks good. Render, add to PSD, sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and render that. That's the one thing I forgot to show you. I was going to show you the HDRI editor. You basically can adjust your lighting within Keyshot. I'll show you that here in a minute.
How difficult are animations to do?
They're not. It depends on the complexity of the animation or your end result that you're looking for, but otherwise they're not too difficult. They're time consuming. The render time.
Right.
It's every. So you can definitely use the Flex Lab in their computers to step it up a bit. And that's where, you know, those webinars on animation are perfect. Alright, so that shows 100% done. I'll wait for my little green check mark. Still working on it a bit. I think I can close it. Or maybe now it's doing the clown pass. Anyway, it says it's still rendering, so I'm going to wait. There we go. I hit the green check. I'm going to go ahead and, while I have Photoshop open, I'm going to hit Shift P and pause Keyshot. And I'm going to do a file open. I'm going to go to the desktop and I'll open up the second PSD file right here. I'm going to select this layer, select all, copy, and I'm going to paste it right in on this guy. Move it over a little bit. So the one on the right is the 10-minute rendering. The one on the left is the 1-minute rendering. So let's zoom in here. Maybe pay attention to this metal area. This is the 1 minute compared to this. Let me see. See how this is a little grainy? A little pixelated. A little bit smoother, a little bit more definition in the pattern there. Let's look at this and this. A little bit more grainy, a little more grainy. But honestly, and you can see it here too, very hard to see in the projector, but you can see a little bit more grain here versus here. Not a demonstrable difference for 10x the rendering time. Did this for 10 minutes and this for 1 minute. So it's really up to you, you know. Whatever you can. You may want to do a quick rendering, like a 1 minute rendering. Make sure your composition, the lighting, the materials are looking good. And then when you have time to just let your computer run with it, go ahead and max it out. You know, if you know that you're gonna have dinner for an hour, you got a break. You know, let it run for an hour, and then go from there. Go ahead and while I'm here. You guys remember how to use those these here? So we did this clown pass specifically just so I can use my eyedropper. Let's see. Is it? No. Oh, right here. Magic wand tool. Sorry, I'm losing it. Magic wand tool, so I can easily come in here and just select. Well, I'm on that layer. There we go. I could come in here and select just this blue area, for example, and then I could come back and I could turn that layer off, come back and highlight my original rendering layer, which would be this guy here. It is off because I think I moved
Oh yeah, look at the top.
Yeah, I think I moved this at one point. Let me go ahead and, I'm really messing it up. Let me move that back to there. So I'll come back to the clown. Use my magic wand. I'm just going to hit the blue here. Highlight the layer I want to adjust. Now that's selected just on that layer. Was it image? Wasn't there a colorize? I'm not a big Photoshop guy, but I remember.
Color balance.
Was it color balance? Oh, hue saturation. I think it was this one. There we go. And I remember he selected colorize. So there we go. Kind of cool. Lightness, darken it up. Choose a different hue. And that's where I think this is really powerful. So you don't have to do a ton of renderings. And what's nice about this, it's hard to see, but you still get the reflections. You can change the color, and you still get all those other details in this, which is nice. Hit OK.
So
I'm going to deselect. So there. What's that?
When we do our triple view one, where there's the one in the middle and there's one size, do we make all three of those, do we render all three of those the same and then go in and change the colors?
No, I would adjust everything in Keyshot first.
Okay.
And even I myself, I'd have to go back and look how I set up the separate scenes or the different. It wasn't a duplicate object. What was it? Pattern. Yeah. Yep. Do the pattern option.
Do we need to make those other patterns different colors?
Yeah, I want 3 different colorways.
Oh, okay.
3 different colorways. And different materials, textures, all that good stuff. So let me hop back in Keyshot one more time. Does this make sense, guys? Did that? Go back here, hop into Keyshot. Actually, I'll go ahead and close Photoshop. No, don't save anything. No. Hit Shift P to let it go again. So let's say this is my rendering. I'm going to open up my environment tab here on the right. See how it says HDRI editor? Has anyone messed with this yet? It's pretty cool. So here we go. So let me drop in more of a basic environment here. Let's say this, oh, it's backdrops. Yeah, let me throw a backdrop in here for one. So I got that. And let me throw in a different environment. Maybe it's even all black. So now, let's say you have an all black environment. I want to do something totally 100% custom. I go to HDRI editor, boom. And now I can add pins or lights. So I'm going to take this pin, hit the plus sign, add pin. You notice it puts basically a light in the scene now. And this is pretty sweet. I love this effect just by accident, but this kind of silhouette, but with just a little bit of glare on there. So now you can take your pin, you can move it around and see how it plays off the object. And what's really cool, let me just throw it over here again. Something like that. Kind of neat. You could say set highlight. So let's say I get rid of this pin. I'm just going to trash it. I'm going to come in here, pin, set highlight in the lower left hand corner here. Click that. Now you just click on your object and it's going to automatically put a light in your scene that will give it a highlight on here. So if I, let's just say control click. So control click. So I clicked right here. Notice there's a highlight now in this edge. And it put the light right here. Now let's say I want to I want more light maybe back in this area of the headphone right here because I can't see any of the texture. So I'll go ahead and double click or click again. So now there's more of a highlight here. Of course you're going to see it really bounce off the aluminum here. And I could go in to my HDRI editor. I hit done. And the pin two. One, you can turn them on and off and get the different effects. You can grab that pin. I can change the shape of that light to a rectangle. I can change the size of it. Change the angle, like so. Spin it on the side. Blend the fall off mode, how long it takes to fade away into black. Make it very sharp. Have a little bit of an edge to it. Some other adjustments that I don't know. That just moves it left to right. It's polar, up and down. Okay. Let's see what half. Kind of interesting. There's some interesting things. I designed my house that I live in now and built it. And before I did that, I actually went in Google Earth and I found the plot of land that I had. I designed my house in Rhino and I built the model in Rhino. And I was able to come into Keyshot with my model, throw it in Google Maps on top of that plot, and then go into my sun and sky mode here, and you actually punch in your coordinates. And I could see which way the shadows were going to come in my windows during the day because I designed it as a passive solar home. So I could get massive, the perfect amount of light, south, southwest, and all that stuff. Anyway, just an interesting tidbit on sun and sky in here. It's really accurate too. You can even tell the time of season, where you're at, and it'll tell you how your shadows are going to come in your house or whatever you're designing. It's pretty sweet. Could come in handy too if you're ever doing some sculpture for a location. You could design it ahead of time for the shadows and those types of things. Forecast it. It's kind of cool. Anyway, there's a little tidbit. But pretty cool, huh? Like be able to come in and just, you don't necessarily have to use the default lighting. I would come in and try to make your own to pull off, the best interpretation of your design that you want. I think it can make it a little bit more dramatic like this versus just some default piece. And then you can always just move your pins around, right? If you have a dual monitors, of course that's pretty sweet because I could just have this over on another monitor adjusting my pins and then watching my screen real time and get the lights just perfect. Oh, and another thing too, I could come in here, let's say this light right here, boom, I select it. Oh, is it under adjustments? Color, sorry, here it is. So I can change that to a red light. Huh? I think, is it black? Remember in the demo he said they set it to actually take away some of the, something never, it'd be pretty impossible just doing basic photography, but anyway, so I could have a red light, or maybe you just wanted a hint of a red light, so you go in and just adjust it down just for not quite as big. But anyway, have some fun with it, guys. So definitely go into HDRI editor, which is right here under your environment tab. You can start with an all black scene like I did over here. So you can go under environment tab over here, just drag and drop it right into your scene. And it'll update over here under this environment tab, and this is where you do all the tweaking. Alright? Exciting, huh?
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's just, we're not even touching animation. Which I was kind of hoping we'd be able to do, but I think I'd rather give you a lot more time on these perfect, beautiful renderings than jumping into animation right now. But you can always just watch those demos. It's pretty straightforward.